Hey guys, Colin Elam again, aka the Musket Man, and I am back for another range episode or range video on YouTube. As I said, if you saw my last video, we just got done doing the buck and ball cartridge with the same gun that you see before me, the Brown Bess by Pedersoli, chambered in 75 caliber. But what I did tell you, if you stayed all the way to the end of that video, is we would do another range session of a different style of cartridge similar to buck and ball, and that is going to be the Buckshot paper cartridge. So a little bit different than the buck and ball. This was also by the Jefferson Arsenal. It is because of them and their kit that I was able to make these. So this is essentially a shotgun cartridge. This is made for close range. It is not made for 50, 60, 75 yards of shooting. This is for very close distance. So the ranges we're going to shoot at are not going to be 25, 50, and 75 because it's not made for that distance. I'm going to probably start at 10, 15 yards and move back a little bit every time to see where the effectiveness kind of stops. The cartridge we're shooting today is going to have 12, and I'll pull it out again, see if you can see it. It is 12 buckshot or double-aught buckshot pellets that come out to .311 in diameter, and it is loaded with 120 grains of 1F GoX black powder. I like to use 1F because this is a big bore gun, and it typically makes more sense to use that kind of powder for these guns. Anything bigger, like a blunderbuss, or even some style of cannons. The cartridge also, when I was making the cartridges, it had 12, seated the 12, tied them off, and then it has a cloth that essentially also acts as wadding that's between the ball and the powder to keep powder from leaking out of the cartridge. So I do have that. I don't know if that's going to make a difference to act more like a shotgun wad, even though the rest of the paper when you load a musket is your wad, but I'm not sure what to expect with that, but we will see today. The Buckshot cartridge is still used today. Many people in the civilian market, militaries around the world, even here in the States, still use buckshot in their shotguns. 16 gauges, 12 gauges, 410s, 10 gauge. They still use them for home defense, truck defense, even on a military level today. People still use them, and even for hunting to a degree. I could see where maybe not something like this, but a more modern gun, if you live somewhere where there's lots of thick brush, buckshot may be your best option for whatever you're using it for. So what's something else I want to go over is, you know, most people when you think of the buckshot, you're thinking of a shotgun, which a musket like this has a big enough bore to pretty much be a shotgun. Now, most people would have loaded it loose back then. They would have had a powder, some kind of wadding, would have dumped their shot, then a card of some kind or more wadding to hold down their buckshot, then they would prime and shoot. What everybody needs to understand, this is a military style paper cartridge. This was designed to tear off, pour powder, ram a cartridge all the way home, prime first, then do all that, then shoot. It was meant to have maximum spread, but to be able to reload quickly, just like the round ball and the buck and ball cartridge. That was the whole point of smooth bore muskets, was to get rate of fire over accuracy. But when you have a smooth bore, that's where buck and ball and buckshot can come into play. So that's the whole point. So whatever the results are going to be today is, whether they're different or whack or what you don't like, you have to remember this is a military cartridge. I could probably load this gun loose with wadding and shotgun wads, all that, which I believe they make them for the Brown Bess shotgun or Brown Bess muskets. See what I'm saying? Shotgun. But and you would probably get different results. Same with birdshot and changing up the style of buckshot you're using. That's not the test we're doing today. The test is over a military version of that cartridge, similar to a 12-gauge buckshot shotgun shell, if you will. But anyway, guys, let's get on to the range, load up, and do some shooting. All right, before we start this video, in the great words of the Black Powder Maniac shooter, ear protection and eye protection is strongly recommended when it comes to flintlocks, muzzleloaders, and all firearms. The flintlock we're going to be shooting today has a massive flash very close to your face. Shards of that burning powder or bits of the flint can fly back and hit you in the eye. So make sure you're wearing proper eye protection to protect your eyesight. And coming from a guy that has tinnitus from not being smart wearing earplugs in my youth, I highly recommend you do this because you can't repair your hearing either. So make sure you're taking the proper safety precautions when it comes to flintlock muskets, percussion guns, and all firearms. All right, guys, so the target we're going to be using, again, is one you've already seen on the channel many times, is Paper Pete. The reason I like using him is because it's a massive target and you can see your impacts better. This one is also the Brancer Cairness, awareness. Why not shoot that? Also, I like the bright colors because you can see an impact better than like those black ones. They're kind of hard to see sometimes. You have to squint or walk back up to see your impact. So with the Buckshot, I should be able to see it pretty well, and I even have some spare targets that I'm going to use after, because I'm not expecting it to last very long. But since this is a musket and this is a cartridge that would have been used around the world, it's made for close range. So it was made to shoot at a man size or big target and basically hit him everywhere. That's what it was made for. So we're going to do that again here with the Paper Pete to see what kind of spread and overall performance and damage we can get with the Buckshot paper cartridge. So let's back up and do some shooting. All right, guys, so we have backed up to about 15 yards, which is going to be a give me shot. But I need to see what kind of spread. After the last video with the buck and ball, we saw how bad the Buckshot spread. Even though it was just 3 pellets, it spread so bad at just 25 yards that a lot of them weren't even hitting the target. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with it being a 75 caliber musket. These cartridges, just like the buck and ball, is suited for 69 caliber muskets all the way to the 75s. So my guess is that's why the spread was so massive, was because this is probably a little bit more for the 69 caliber guns. And hopefully you can still hear me fine. The wind just picked up, so I hope you can still hear me. But we're going to shoot from here to see what kind of effect we can get. All right. Again, will not be loading the traditional way, in case you're new to the channel, where I tear it off with my teeth, do all that fun stuff. I just don't want to. And since the last time we were on the range, I have put a new flint on this gun. That went down very easy. So I have put a new flint, so hopefully we don't have any misfires. That was so yeah, you can see how this would be more suited for the 69 caliber guns, but the Jefferson Arsenal says it's for these, and I know it'll work. Take your hammer stall off, and again, I like priming with this little guy, a little brass whistle full of powder, full of 4F Go-X, very unstable powder that I like to use to make sure I get a good ignition. All right, first shot, here we go. Let's move up a little closer and see what we did. All right, not surprised at just 15 yards. That's what it did. That is a crazy amount of spread. Hopefully you can see everything. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That spread is absolutely massive at just 15 yards. None in the bullseye, even though that's where I was aiming. Wow. Okay. So I'm probably going to back up to about 25 yards since we got all Buckshot to hit on paper at this range. I'm going to back up a little further and see what the Buckshot cartridge can do. Also, I just realized that my counting is horrible. I forgot it's a 12 pellet cartridge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I think 12 is right here. So we had 2 go all the way up here that far out of the spread. That's incredible. Wow. And I think, yeah, there's 2 here. So I was wrong. I miscounted. So we had 2 hit here, 2 hit here. It looks like part of the cartridge in some points stayed together. So far much spread, it hit him right in the jaw. That's incredible. Wow. All right, I know I initially said I was going to back up to 25, but to be honest, because of the result I got from the first shot, I want to shoot again because I want to see if the spread is going to change better or worse, because I don't know. I just feel like there's something else that could happen with this cartridge at this range, because if I start backing up, I'm not having high hopes with this cartridge that only a couple of pellets are probably going to hit him. So let's try again at 15 and see what happens. Again, if you're a new viewer, these cartridges are biodegradable. Had some people get mad at me that I was littering. Next time it rains, they will be nowhere to be seen. They will be completely gone. And I don't know if y'all heard that. That cartridge just went all the way to the breech of the gun without a ramrod. Watch this. Wow. And again, this is 120 grains of 1F GoX. Wow. Probably safe to say this cartridge is probably more suited for the 69 caliber guns, but good to know that it can still work in the big old Brown Bess. All right, shot 2. All right, let's go check her out. Okay, this is why I wanted to take another shot at 15, because I was actually afraid of this happening. The spread was insane again. So at 15 yards, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 way down here, 9, one way over here, so it missed completely, 10, winged him. Here's 11 too, just very edge, winged him. And I'm not seeing another one. Maybe y'all can see something I'm not. So we had actually, from what I can tell right now, 1 pellet missed. But look how crazy the spread is. I mean, way up here, 1, 2 way over to the side, 1 way down in the gut, 1 way down in the groin. That's crazy. And, oh, actually, here it is, right here. I can see I got fresh metal right here, so it just winged off to the side here. Wow. So at 15 yards, you have a chance of not all the pellets hitting him. Wow. Yeah. Well, I think this go around I will back up to 25. Not going to have such high hopes at 25 with this cartridge. Again, I really just think it's because this is a big bore gun. So, yeah, let's back up to 25 and see what kind of results we can get. All right, hopefully you, the viewer at home, can see we have backed up to 25 yards in this shot. Again, I'm not having high hopes for this cartridge at this range, simply because after just 2 shots at 15 yards, we had 1 pellet, nearly, actually, after further review, 2 pellets would have missed him. They just barely nicked the end of the paper, so they would have been complete misses or hit his clothing. So, not looking too good for the Buckshot cartridge. Again, I simply believe that is because it is in such a big caliber bore. I believe that is the problem we're facing here today, ladies and gentlemen. But here we go. Again, live ammunition. Some people have speculated I am shooting blanks. As you can see, I am not. I will say that is convenient that it loads very, very easy. But again, not quite sure if it's supposed to be that easy. But it will do no harm to the gun. All right, shot 3. Let's go check it out. Okay, I think I see a couple of new holes, but may not be too many. All right, here we go. Okay. So, it actually performed a little bit better than I was expecting, but not by much. We still only have, there was one extra one here, I believe 3, yeah, here, 2 here. I think we had 1 hit over here again. Yep, there's a new one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I believe I counted out. So 9. 10, 1 down here. So we got a new hit. I don't know if y'all can see. That's down in the tape. That's how low it is. Sorry to block y'all. Oh, here we go right here. So most of the buckshot actually hit him. 1 missed, and I think we had 1 or 2 other misses. There's some fresh steel on the side of the barrel y'all can't see that's being struck. So that also probably confirms my theory with the last week's video with the buck and ball that they were going to the right and left of him. Because some of these are going way over here, some are going way over there. Which, if you haven't seen that video, go check it out and it'll explain what the purpose of buck and ball was. This is a little bit different experience, as this was to make the gun into an actual shotgun. That was pretty much the purpose of it, was very close quarter combat. So of the era, if you were going through a house, that's 5 yards closer and maybe 10 max. I mean, that's going to do pretty good damage. This is point and shoot. So it did a little bit better at 25 than I thought it would. I apologize. I also ran out of the little sticky pads, so I have some left. I'll try to cover some of these up. I'm going to back up again to 25, shoot again to show you, the viewer, if there's any change in spread. Honestly, I don't know. I think it's going to be completely random. I don't think there's going to be very much consistency on spread. But let's back up and shoot her again. Okay, so we're going to shoot at 25 yards again to see if I can try to get any difference or improvement in spread, simply because it is going all over the place. Now, some would say, if you were thinking like a buck and ball scenario, hey, in massive volley fire, this might be good. Well, maybe at very close ranges it might. But if you get really far away, if anybody knows anything about buckshot, even in an old musket, it loses its energy and velocity very, very quickly. Well, once you do that, they're going to come back down to the earth rapidly. So that's why the range on this cartridge is not very far. Even if you had more of your buddies all firing in formation, let's say at 150 yards, odds are most of that buckshot is not going to reach there. Most of it won't. And what does land a hit is not going to probably do significant enough damage to really make a change in the fight. Most likely. All right, 4th shot. Let's go check her out. Okay. Well, we have impacts, so that's good. Okay, so at 25 yards for the second time, we did have some impacts still. 2 over here. I believe this is a new one. Let's see. Those are old. We had another impact way over here, 1 in the shoulder, I believe. I believe this guy's new. One pelt right to the neck. Let me see if there's any fresh steel over here. Nope. So, seeing the tape. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, I believe 4, 5, 6, 7. So about, again, because I need to get more sticky things. I didn't have enough. So I'm going to say about 9 out of the 12 hit. And they're hitting, for the most part, center mass. But there's some that are going way left, way right, way up over his head, down in his groin. But I'd say about 2/3 of the cartridge is staying on trajectory. So, is it still a viable cartridge? I'm going to say it's up in the air for discussion. Because if you really had to get a shot off, and this is all you had, 25 yards, you got him. It may not unalive that person. Let's say it was the American Revolution, you were a soldier fighting it, but he's definitely going down. And he's not going to get back up at 15 or maybe 15, probably not, 25, maybe. Just depends on where he was hit. Well, now that we've seen the kind of spread, I'm not going to back up any further because I don't have enough of these sticky pads to cover up my hits, so that I'm not going to get a good reading. But what I am going to do is I've got the giant sticky target I'm going to put right back on here to block all the impacts. And I'm going to go to about 5-7 yards to see how tight I can get at that range. Because we've already seen how wide the spread is. But let's see at close range how bad or how good the spread is. So let's load her back up and let's go to about 5-7 yards and see what kind of damage the Buckshot cartridge can do. All right, guys. We can't get any closer than that. This is... I can throw my gun at him. This is very close. Honestly, this is where I would have to say, if this is how close you have to be for your cartridge to work effectively, it might be time for a new cartridge. So, I'm going to assume the spread is not going to be so bad because we're very close. And I really feel bad for Paper Pete at this kind of range with this kind of cartridge. But we're here for science. So, let's just see what we can do. All right, 5th shot at way too close. Here we go. All right. Actually, I'm just going to move the camera because we're so close. Holy. Okay. So, success, but you can see I was so close. The burning powder hit him. That's how close it got. There are spent burn particles of black powder, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think, yeah, there's 12. So all 12 hit exactly where I was aiming at. Again, 5 yards, had almost very little spread, very tight. But that just shows you once you get back to 15, just over, so 3 times the distance I was just at, it dramatically starts to spread. So, I mean, does it work? Absolutely it works, and it's a military-style paper cartridge. But the effects of this were a little bit different. Again, we'll be revisiting this with a smaller bore musket to try and get better results, just like the buck and ball. So, yeah, that's probably about all I'm going to do, because if I shoot any more, it's just going to be the same results as the last 5 shots. And you can see I can't get any closer for one, metal barrel. But number 2 is, if my black powder residue is hitting him, that's way too close. So anyway, yeah, I still enjoyed this. Thank you, Jefferson Arsenal. It's a pretty neat and gnarly looking cartridge, so I appreciate them for sending me that. And I would love to, and I'm going to revisit it at some point. But anyway, yeah, so I still call this a complete success. All right. So what are my final thoughts on the Buckshot military cartridge? Even though the results were pretty wild, I would say, for this type of cartridge, I still call it a success. One is, I don't believe that cartridge was per se typically made for the 75 caliber big bore muskets. Even though it is specified that you can shoot it, as you just saw today, and it shot just fine without doing any damage or anything like that to the gun, but the spread was insane. I just think that is because the buckshot and the way it was tied was more specified for the 69 caliber muskets, which again, I will be returning to the range with either my 1757 Spanish and the 1842 Springfield to test out both of these cartridges. One, the buck and ball you saw last week, and the buckshot cartridge you saw today. So I believe there's going to be a tighter grouping with the smaller bore. That's just me. But results of the overall performance of loading and the gun could be different. We'll have to find out at a later date. But I still call this a success. It was the same powder charge as all my cartridges, 120 grains of 1F GoX. Some people may like different charges for theirs. That's great. Different brands. Results may vary. That's the whole point of these, is you got to take them out and shoot them, and you got to find out what works best in your gun and what works for you too. That's the glory of black powder. But I also want to thank Jefferson Arsenal again, because without them, this video would not have been possible. It's a very high quality kit, ships right to your door, and you can get started very quickly. They even come with instructions how to do it properly, and I think they have some YouTube videos as well, which, by the way, I am not sponsored by them in any way. They just make a good product, really, and I just want to thank them for allowing me to purchase one to get out here and shoot it. But anyway, guys, other than that, I see this as a complete success. Would love to return soon with a different bore gun to get different results. All right, guys, so one thing I wanted to add is, you can see this was towards the end of the video. My gun is in the pickup, and so is my cartridge box. Is if you were thinking about getting this cartridge kit by Jefferson Arsenal, highly recommend it. In fact, I recommend any of their products. I have yet to be disappointed, especially with their smooth bore cartridges. They are phenomenal. So if you're thinking about that, highly recommend you go get it from Jefferson Arsenal. Here's the thing. If you're buying it for your Brown Bess, and hopefully this video helped answer that question you might have had or been curious about, is your spread is going to be insane. So just know that. So outside of 30 yards, your effectiveness is going to deplete very, very quickly on a man-sized target. When I say that, I mean a big target. So if you're out in New Mexico and you're hunting in the woods or something like that, it better be close, or you may have to load with different styles of buckshot, and you may have to load it loose over a military style cartridge. So I just wanted to let people know that real quick, because it'll work. Don't get me wrong. It will load just fine and shoot just fine in your Brown Bess. But your effectiveness is gonna vary between what brand of gun it is. You may have an Indian trade Brown Bess. The effects may be different than the Pedersoli. So just let that be known. You may have to experiment with different size buckshot and maybe more of a smaller size to get better effectiveness. Again, this is something I can maybe come back on the channel on. Let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, guys, just wanted to go over that real quick. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll catch you next time. All right, guys, I know I've mentioned many times in this video about Jefferson Arsenal. Again, without them, this video simply wouldn't have been possible. If you're looking for this specific cartridge kit, I highly recommend you go check them out. They also have a variety of other kits that you can use for all different types of guns and all of your black powder needs. So go make sure to check out Jefferson Arsenal. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode on the Musket Man 98 channel over the military style of buckshot paper cartridges. Remember, I'm the Musket Man. Keep your powder dry. We will catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching. See you later, guys. We'll catch you next time.